As a teenager, I was interested in art, and then my father advised me to find something more practical. Although it wasn't a compromise, but it was a different direction. And we met after college, and I had been working at a different firm, and Frank was in a small practice on his own. And shortly after we met, we decided to try to do a project together and see how it goes. And here we are 25 years later.
And so I grew up in Switzerland. I actually decided to become an architect when I was about 7 years old. So I kind of knew very early on I wanted to become an architect. And from that, sort of an interest in history in general and in architectural history. And that is what took me to Los Angeles, actually.
We both have a very strong interest in art and always have, and always had friends that were artists. And so for the last, 20 years or so, we've been doing various projects in collaboration with artists who are also friends now.
I think Sharon Lockhart was probably the first one, and we've worked with her for about 15 years, designing all of her major shows around the world, and that led to other collaborations. Quite often, artists will look at things that we are looking at in different ways, and we've always felt that it introduces a different way of thinking to our own work. It's also two things that we are extremely interested in. We all benefit from each other if we keep sort of an open discussion. I started working on a book on John Lautner, which came out in 1994, was actually the first book on Lautner. That was actually what led, in a way, to us restoring the Chemisphere, which was really the first project. It was kind of interesting because I had a very different approach to the building than Ravi did. I was more, I think, cautious, very aware that what I thought we could do and what we could not do. And I think Ravi had a much freer sort of approach to this and suggested things that at first I thought were almost sort of preposterous to do. And so, it kind of, I think, also speaks about how we work together, that there's always this sort of conversation and this sort of dialogue.
The Eames House was a very different situation because it was so well documented, and the house was, pretty much intact exactly as the Eameses left it. And so it was more a case of conserving what's there, or carefully restoring very particular elements, and so there was no need to kind of second guess what should have gone there. And we had the benefit of the family, the grandchildren, who are the keepers of great knowledge about the house. There's a very well-documented archive, and then the Getty Conservation Institute became a partner in the project and provided all sorts of expertise in the conservation process, as well as providing scientific analysis of various components. We don't consider ourselves artists, and we do consider architecture an art, though it's a different art form.
This sort of separation between the artist and the architect is a 19th century construct, and until then buildings were designed by artists, and it really wasn't until much later that these sort of became separate disciplines. I think it's a really interesting development of architects sort of, crossing this divide again. We certainly think that any important 20th century or 21st century art movement has influence in one way or the other the way architects think about their own work. To us, it's always been very important to be as informed as possible about these other disciplines, whether we actually work in this discipline or not. But it is essential to sort of know what surrounds us.